Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. Today I wanted to do another video for Women's History Month that is going on throughout the month of March, and I am planning to do some other videos. We'll see if I get around to doing them before the month is over. If not, then I'll obviously just do them at a later point. But today I wanted to talk about books featuring women writing on writing. So writing as a craft. So all of these are nonfiction books. I could have easily chosen fiction books as well, but today I'm going to focus on nonfiction writing, where the craftsmanship of writing is central to the book. And some of them deal with the craft of writing in different ways. The one that I read most recently is Constructing a Nervous System by Margo Jefferson. This book is particularly about the act of writing a memoir. And I love reading memoirs, and I think there is a readathon going on in April that is specifically on reading memoirs, so this might be interesting to read for that as well. But this is Margo Jefferson both writing her memoir but also reflecting on the creation of your own personal narrative and of lacking certain frames to put your story, to make sense of your story. And I think it's really interesting, especially if you are a big reader of the genre, to think about the craftsmanship that goes into it, that memoirs are of course not neutral storytelling. The framing of memoirs is such an important aspect of it that that completely differs from a biography, where usually, at least, a biography's intention is to give you a full picture. A memoir is always going to be selective, and I think this is what Margo Jefferson talks about in really interesting ways in this book. She also does talk about her own personal stories and anecdotes and memories that she's reflecting on. And one of the things I really liked about her reflections is when she's talking about, or sort of looking back on memories that meant something completely different as she was experiencing it firsthand, but then looking back with hindsight and with a different perspective from life experiences, just sort of reevaluating a lot of the things that she had as a child or as a young woman seen as natural, as normal, with quotation marks. So this is a really good book, and I think Jefferson is a really interesting writer, and I really liked her reflections on the creative aspects of writing in general, and in particular writing memoir. Next we have an autobiographical trilogy by Tove Ditlevsen. This is the second book in the trilogy. I've only read the first one, but I've sampled both this and the third in the trilogy. And I think for me, Ditlevsen is one of those examples of writers who write on becoming a writer and why they feel compelled to write, why it seems to be a driving force in their life, not just something they do for a living or as an occupation, as a profession, but as something that drives them to live and to exist. And everything I know about her makes me think that way about Ditlevsen. I think in the first book there's some indications that she's interested in writing and reading, that she's very intelligent as a young child and performs really well at school. But the second and third book probably goes more into it, because the second book talks about her starting to work. And the third one, I think she looks back more into her married life. But yeah, I really want to get back to this trilogy, but she's one of those authors I think of when I think of women writers who reflect on writing and on the craftsmanship of it, on the creative aspects of it, of the feeling of writing being a necessity in your life. Another author in a similar vein that I think of in terms of women writing on writing is Deborah Levy. This is again the second book in the trilogy. It's just called, I think, The Living Autobiography, and this is The Cost of Living. This is my favorite of the trilogy. And I love Levy's reflections on writing and what it means to her, and also how her writing career has changed over decades, over time, how it has fitted into her life in different ways over her lifetime. It's interesting and funny to me because I don't necessarily love her fiction. I've read one that I didn't like and one that I was kind of lukewarm and liked but wasn't blown away by. So it's, for me, I think the thing that really draws me to Levy is exactly her reflections on writing and what it means to her and why she feels compelled to turn her observations of life into something lasting and something that other people can take part in. So yeah, I absolutely love this autobiographical trilogy, and again, she's an example of this type of writing on writing. Next, we have an essay collection that is somewhat about writing and fitting in writing in your life as a mother and as a woman, as sort of trying to coexist in several roles in your life, is Coventry by Rachel Cusk. She talks about being, as I said, a mother, a wife, a woman, all of these roles, and also trying to do work. And in that way, it's talking about writing, but also it's talking about writing in the sense of she is talking about what she's reading and the reflections she's making in connection with that was also something I really liked. She writes about other women writers and the way they felt compelled to write, or the way their legacy has lived on. So again, it's sort of a combination of reflections on how to be able to write in the first place, and finding a space for it in your life, but also appreciating other women who have done this before you, and continues to do it. I really liked Cusk's essays in general, but I particularly liked when they were focusing in on writing and reading. Lastly, we have Translating Myself and Others by Jhumpa Lahiri, and this one is particularly interesting because Lahiri does talk about writing in and of itself, writing fiction, writing non-fiction, because this is an essay collection. She has dabbled in different types of writing, short stories and novels, and as I said, essays, and more academic writing as well. But she's also a translator, and because of that, there is that aspect to this as well. The creative aspects of translating text. But one of the things I think is particularly interesting in terms of writing original text is that she reflects on how her writing shifted and changed, and through writing in different languages. So she had been writing in English for all of her life until she moved to Italy, and then she started writing in Italian. So she's talking about her evolution as a writer, as she's using different mediums, different genres, different languages, but also the different roles of a translator and the writer of the original text, and the different ways to approach text. So if you are at all interested in this topic, you need to read Lahiri on writing and on translation. She has quickly become one of my favorite writers and favorite thinkers. So yeah, I love this. I think there are definitely essays in this that isn't specifically about this, but again, like with Coventry, there's many of my favorite essays were specifically about these themes and topics. So those were the books that I wanted to talk about that I've read. I also briefly wanted to mention 3 books that I have on my to-read list that is centered around this topic. So first, we have a book that isn't specifically about writing per se, but it is writing on craftsmanship and on creation, and that is Handiwork by Sara Baume. Sara Baume is also the writer of A Line Made from Walking, I think it's called, and this was a recommendation from Oliver. I will put a link to his YouTube in the description below. I am really looking forward to reading this one, and I think as soon as I sort of clear my deck, I will be dedicating some time to this. But this one is about, as I said, creation and in different mediums. So she is creating these wooden birds, and reflecting on that, but also I think on creation more generally. It says, in this contemplative short narrative, artist and acclaimed writer Sara Baume charts the daily process of making and writing, exploring what it is to create and to try to live as an artist. Elegantly encompassing images from a work in progress, Handiwork offers gentle and devastating observations on grief, renewal, and migration of birds. So yeah, this sounds so good. And then one I've heard a lot of people talk about recently is A Horse at Night, on writing by Amina, Cain, and I think the title pretty much is self-explanatory that it is on writing. And I think this one, similarly to Rachel Cusk, is also probably reflecting on other writers. And I think possibly sort of finding inspiration and finding the urge that you need to write to be inspired and follow other people's footsteps as well. So yeah, I'm again really looking forward to this one. And then lastly, one I've recently got out from my library is In the Margins, On the Pleasures of Reading and Writing by Elena Ferrante. And I really wanted to read more Ferrante since I read the first book in the Neapolitan Quartet in the first year of the pandemic, so it's been a while. And I recently also bought the second book in the Neapolitan Quartet. So I'm planning to continue on with the with her fiction, but also I'm really interested in this one. I think, again, the combination of reading and writing is my favorite themes to read about in nonfiction. So I think, or some of my favorite topics to read about in nonfiction. So I think this will be a nice thing to combine maybe when I continue on with her fiction, especially because it is such a slim novel, such a slim volume. So there are those. So that was all I want to talk about today in terms of women writing on writing. Let me know if you've read any of these books and your thoughts. I would love to chat with you about them. And also if you have any recommendations on women reflecting on the craftsmanship of writing, or any other creative things like the Handiwork example, then I would be very interested to make a note of your recommendations as well. And I think that was all I wanted to say. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.